Okay, but let's get to our first guest. Now, our first guest is CCH Pounder. You want some trivia about CCH Pounder, man?
Yes, I do.
Well, here's a little trivia. Yeah. Her film resume includes roles in All That Jazz, Pritzi's Honor, Postcards from the Edge, Face Off, Orphan, which I liked Orphan a lot, actually. That's a good, nasty movie, that Orphan.
That's a Vera Farmiga, I Raised Demented Children movie.
Yeah, it's one of those good demented children movies.
Yeah.
James Cameron's new opus Avatar, of course, in which she plays Moat, the mother of Zoe Saldana's character. And on television, she's made a huge mark, too, most notably in the role of Captain Claudette Wims in The Shield.
Without a doubt, yeah.
Yeah. People approach her about that all the time. And what does the CCH stand for?
That's what I want to know.
Well, here it goes. Carol Christine Hilaria.
Okay.
Now there's two. I don't know. I didn't ask about. We talked about movies. I didn't talk about her first name, but there's two theories on what this is. That's her full first name, or those are the first names of her siblings.
Oh.
Or maybe it's both. Here's another interesting thing about CCH. She was born on Christmas Day, so she just had her birthday.
Oh.
She's a Christmas Day baby. So that explains why I'm telling her happy birthday during the interview. I just wanted to set that up.
Okay.
Because I don't want people saying, don't you mean Merry Christmas? But no. It makes sense. So here is CCH talking about her incredible career, her love of the craft of acting, and, of course, working with James Cameron in Avatar. First, if I can get a sense of your connection to the craft of acting and some of the earlier experiences you've had, what were your first inclinations that acting was a calling for you?
So easy to remember. In England, I had a cricket ball hit me at the back of my head. I had a slight memory problem. I was at a boarding school run by nuns, and they thought, if she learned some poems, like a poem a day, just to get that memory oiled up, maybe it would help. And then getting the test of the poems by reciting it back, it was sort of one nun, two nuns one day, and then three nuns another day, and kind of went, hey, little audience, they're enjoying it. So sort of started that way. That's when I knew, and then I sort of did lots of elocution stuff and poetry competitions and things like that.
So it was a connection to an audience, I would imagine, but also a
Definitely.
connection to...
And I think it still is today, because I have a huge problem with actually seeing the end result. Not as in oh no I never watch myself, not even that, but I sort of, once I'm done with it, I tend to move on to, okay, who's next? What am I doing next? And I've always had that sort of enthusiasm for the rehearsal process of getting to know the script and then performing it in one way or the other, and then to actually sit and look at the result. I don't know whether it's because I was in the theater for so long that there was no result, to come back to. So it was always that instant moment while I'm there, while it's happening. Well,
the process is always the thing with acting, I would imagine. That's where it's at. But it also sounds like with the poetry that you discussed, that you would recite, and your extensive theater experience, that you felt a real connection to the written word.
I do. Almost to a fault, because if a writer or a director says, well, just make up your own words here, I hate it. It's like I'm an interpreter of words. And unfortunately, that was so instilled in me that sometimes, it gets in your way, because sometimes you do come up with things that are far fresher and sort of more honest than what the writer comes up with. But for the most part, I like to think that you can write anything down on a page, and I'll find a way to interpret it. I still kind of like that thrill.
I would think that would be particularly valuable in the theater. And I know that in the early 70s, I believe, that you moved to New York and did a lot of theater work.
Yes, I started out in the theater, and I did a lot of regional theater as well. But the difference is that once you come to California and you're in film, the word doesn't really hold that much weight as it did in the theater for, you're rehearsing lines, so that's not the right line. Mm. It's very specific there. But here, sometimes, you say something, and because you're still saying it with the right amount of sincerity, they kind of go, oh, no, we don't have to cut, that works, and they keep going. Mm-hmm. And I really do try. I really, really do try to sort of get as close to the script as I possibly can.
Is that a urge that you have to get back in the theater every now and then?
I still think I'm in the theater. I'm just a little confused because one of the things I find very hard doing is to sort of repeat the line exactly the same with the same inflection that's sometimes required in film. And it's worked to my advantage, but sometimes for some directors it's kind of like, no, I want it exactly the same way that you did it, 3 days ago. Mm-hmm. And for me, it's still live and fresh and, it's slightly altered. So
right.
I think it's a plus and a minus for me as well.
I want to ask about a couple of the early film experiences that you had, and I don't know the extent of your experience with these two directors, but very early on, possibly one of your first film projects, you played a small part in All That Jazz, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, I think that was my very first anything.
Yeah.
Thank God for that, man, because I was in the theater. I thought that was the life I was going to be living. And I went to meet him not to be, in my mind, a part of the film, but to show him these various Caribbean accents, because the nurse in his life was from the Caribbean. Mm. And apparently he hadn't quite found the voice. And Fewer and Ritzers had heard of this new kid that is recently in town. She was from South America, but, it's a Caribbean country, and maybe she could help you out. And that's really what I thought I was going to do. Literally, I thought I was going to do Mr. Fosse a favor. So blind. And anyway, as it turned out, he offered me the role, of which I thought I was too young for, and I had never done any film, and, surely you could get somebody else. And he said, no, you can do this. And he literally held my hand through that entire process, because you're so much bigger in the theater that, to bring yourself all the way down and make it smaller. And he said, all I really need to see are your eyes. And so your eyes are doing all the work. He was a marvelous teacher because I had the sound that he wanted. He was that interested. And he really held my hand through the entire thing. And he made it a very easy transition. He even said, and from this, you're going to get your SAG card. Had no idea what it was. And he said, and you're to keep up the payments until you're ready to do this as a career. And I was like, oh, no, Mr. Fosse, I'm never going to do this again. I'm going back to the theater where I belong. I was so stupid. And but, 7 years later, lo and behold, Actors Theater in Milwaukee rep was so freezing that I actually called up a friend who lived in California, and I said, I can't take it. Mm.
You wanted a warmer climate.
Yeah, I did. I mean, I was really, really miserable. I caught my reflection in a bar window, and it was like the Quasimodo reaction, like, oh, my God, it's me! I can't believe it's me! It was just so devastated. Like the frozen snot, the frozen tears, the scarf, everything. And she said, suggested that I get out of there. And that's literally how I came to California. It's like a total freak accident.
Wow. But it's amazing how you start by meeting Bob Fosse in a project of his, and it's just he was such an incredible artist, and that movie is so raw, and you feel that all of his blood and guts are in that movie. That must have been inspiring to be in his company.
In hindsight, yes. Mm-hmm. In hindsight, I have been an extraordinary ambulance chaser. Didn't even realize it. John Huston.
That's the next question I was going to ask about Mr. Huston.
John Huston, when I met him in his trailer surrounded by oxygen tanks. And I was like, oh, my God, this man is on his last legs. And all he said to me is, do you think you can do this job? And I said, yes, I can. And he said, fine, it's yours. So like, what? No audition, nothing. He said, no, you're it. And I don't know what he'd seen, if he'd seen any tape or anything like that, but gave it to me that day. I flew back to New York. I flew in to do the offstage voice for Jack Nicholson. And then about a couple months later, I flew back in to do my own with the script supervisor. Which was sort of like somebody reading from a book. But we managed.
That's an amazing movie too, because when you watch that movie, it's so alive and vibrant. It feels like the work of a young man. It
was a wonderful. I think people, when they know that they've got time becomes precious. I think they've got a kind of snap and a sense of I want to get this done, and not a sense of urgency as opposed to unwasted energy. Let's come up to the bar right away. I don't want to have to raise you up. You're already there. Okay, roll that camera. Roll the tape. I think that's what that felt like to me.
I want to ask about your television work as well. I'm curious about a couple of things having to do with working in that medium. Obviously, you have originated several recurring characters in television series, most notably probably The Shield. I'm sure you're approached about The Shield very regularly. That was so memorable. But when you're carrying a character for that length of time, and you're not sure where the writers are taking it, have you found that there's ever been a conflict where you would disagree with an arc or certain behavior that they would give your character that didn't fall in line with your perception?
Well, it actually tends to be, for me, the most exciting time, because I'm clueless, and it's exactly the way I wrote it. When we were doing The Shield, I think most actors would go and have a meeting sort of once a year for the new season of, what's my character going to do? And I would be the one to say, I don't want to know. Just write it and I'll do it. And so sometimes when we were sitting around the table when the script has finally arrived and I'm reading it for the first time and just cringing, like, no, this is not going to happen. I would be the most outspoken. I would curse and stamp my fingers, and then they say, well, you can have a private conversation if you want anything changed. And I went, no, I don't want it changed. I just got to figure out how to do this. So, in a funny way, it's sort of, I'm still that person that I mentioned, 10 minutes ago. I'm still that person, like, you write it, I'll do it, damn it. Now, there was one thing that I did work out with them, and that was Claudette cursing. And I really was against it. Nothing to do with the moral compass. Nothing to do with, she's one of the guys. As a matter of fact, because you come up in a guy's world, she can beat them at their own game kind of thing, and that was like all part of her character. But I wanted something more dramatic. And so I had said to Sean Ryan, I said, I don't ever want to see a curse coming out of Claudette on the page unless the whole world stops. So that if she says a curse word, everything stops because, it's about to hit the fan. I really wanted it to be a kind of a dramatic choice. as opposed to just the regular everyday banter. And I think it really did work for her. I know that, as different writers came along, they loved to throw that in, and they try to make their mark, and so.
Well, that's interesting how you mentioned the guest directors, because I was going to ask you about some of the other TV you've done where you've actually done guest spots and guest roles in established television series, and I've talked to actors about this before, and it's an apt title, guest spot or guest actor, because
right.
I would imagine you feel like a guest in someone else's home in a way.
You do.
And
if you're welcomed well, then you become part of the team temporarily for that week or week and a half that it takes to shoot it. And if the program is already sort of, particularly when it's running well and running for a long time and everyone's sort of self-absorbed in their own worlds and, what my character will do and what it doesn't do, and, I only want to be shot on this side of my, all of that stuff, then it's just a miserable situation that you just kind of went, okay, I am here because, and you keep the focus on why you're there.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not because the role is fabulous. Sometimes it's just timing and the money is right and you need to get things done, like repair your roof or fix your kitchen or something like that.
Sure. But what's important to you from a film set or from a director, since the director establishes the tone of a set, is comfort? Does comfort kind of inspire confidence in an actor?
Well, I had an experience with Mike Nichols, and I was quite young then in terms of film work. I was really young. Meryl Streep. I cannot think of the gentleman's name. But anyway, I was working with Meryl Streep at the time, and he had a table read for everyone, down to the guy with one line. And then you got to hear the whole story. And basically you saw yourself in the story as an integral, just a link. You're just another link, and you're another link, and you're another link. I know it sounds really socialist, but what it did for you is you didn't waste time, and say if you went in with one line and he said, he went that away. Or you keep rehearsing, because you sat around, you realize it's just like he went that way. That's the end of it. That's all you have to say. That's your line. And that's all that's required, but we need it. So that you instantly became a part of the whole program, and yet you saw your position in it. You saw what you added. And I always remembered that and appreciated the fact that even the smallest part of the story is an integral part of the story for it to work.
Yeah.
And for you to see it in its whole perspective as opposed to, well, the story is awful, but girl, I've got a fabulous role. It doesn't work for me. And so I've never been interested in the fabulous role in rotten writing. I want to see the whole thing. And if the whole thing's good, then the small role is fine.
Yeah. And talk about, talk about a dream project with James Cameron's Avatar. Tell me about Cameron in association with some of the other directors that you've worked with. What makes him similar to the best of those directors, and what makes him unique?
Definitely, I think he's unique because of his technical skills. I think there are a lot of directors, they're very visual, or they came from the acting field, so they might be really good at emotional depth of the character and be able to, pull you in a room and talk you up or talk you down and give you the insights of what they need. Or they're visual, where they just use you as sort of pawns and they shift you around, but their whole picture, they've got the idea, and, you just go there and do that and turn your head like 3/4. That's it, And there's some people that are like that. But I believe Jim Cameron is a genius because he really has a very, very clear idea of his story. But if you come in with your story and you give him something that he hadn't seen before, it's like, I hadn't even thought of that before.
Wow.
And he can incorporate it into the story as part of it because it's a different interpretation, but it doesn't mean that it's a wrong interpretation. And I think his reputation is built on the fact that he's a technical genius, I believe. He knows all of the computer stuff, the digital stuff, the old film, the new film, but he can't act. And it's the one place where he's grateful and he's generous because you're the people that are making the story come alive. And for that, he picks the best that he can find, puts them in their story, and he just lets the film roll.
Yeah. You know, we did a show on Mr. Cameron last week, and we spoke to Stephen Lang, who of course is an Avatar, and Cameron's biographer as well. And more, even outside of the technological innovations, he's very innovative in terms of his portrayal of female characters in a predominantly male-driven genre of action. Yeah, very much so. And did you find that he had a particular take on the female that was unique for this type of movie?
I got the feeling, not a take on, but sometimes the trick is just to listen. You're not female, so you're not producing any miraculous estrogenous stuff that you can apply to the females that are in front of you. So rather, he's chosen a variety of women, one that he obviously knows very, very well in Sigourney.
Right.
And one who is new and has all the right physical attributes in Zoe, one who's mature and different in myself, and I think he just allowed those women to, and you know, you have to even count Michelle Rodriguez as a very tough woman in a man's world also. So there's all these different areas. They're scientists, they're shamans, they're soldiers. But rather than tell them what they are, I think he's allowed them to just sort of deliver what the character inspired them to do. And that in itself is mastery because, you know, I've also had directors who directed every word.
Right,
which is
right.
really funny.
Right. But you got to give me a sense of how it felt to perform your role in this movie, because this is a whole different ball game for an actor, and I'm sure it's going to be more and more common with technology being such a part of building up performance. But it's pure imagination, isn't it? I mean, you're running on imagination.
Pure imagination, which is, of course, the greatest state to be for an actor. You're in a giant gray box. You're told after they throw some sort of rubber balls at you that, you know, arrows are raining down on you, and there are a couple of indications on the floor that those are logs which you will leap over, and all of these things happening, and someone is shouting them out at you. So it's like playing a giant game. It's almost like Simon Says. And so you're ducking and rolling and screaming and ouching, and the point is that the camera is about 2 or 3 inches away from your face because it's attached to your head. And it's catching all your expression, and it's remarkably freeing because you're not in any clothes that tell you what to do. You're not, you know, you're in a surfer suit covered in dots, and you look like you just pulled yourself out of the EKG machine and ran off to play. So there you are with all these knobs and buttons and stuff like that. But as soon as the words come and the interaction comes, you actually forget how you look and what the things are, and you're just imagining mountains and fields and horses and streams and death and fear and all of those things. And that, I think, is an actor's domain.
Right. Well, it seems like the type of situation that you'd have to approach with wild abandon. But was there ever a time when you thought, is this translating? Is this going to work? Did you doubt it all?
No, because I could tell by the reaction in the room. Shh, don't tell anybody. When people forget to click their buttons because they're stuck looking at you, then you're doing your job, and it's working. And then they have, oh my God, get back there and type that in or hit the button or whatever. And that's really, really good when, they forget to say cut, because it's all those things that are happening, because even though they're not seeing anything, they're seeing emotions come alive and interaction, and it even looks like something to them, even though they're only seeing a gray box. But, when you leap over the stream, suddenly they're seeing it. And so it's almost childlike in the sense that, the games that you play with your 6-year-old and, there, over there's that talking sheep and it's barking at me, and as opposed to going, well, where? I don't see anything. And, you just go, oh, there it is. Tell it that I said I love it, and pat it, and then it starts to happen. And that child lives between imagination and reality until we go, okay, say goodbye, it's time for tea, the real deal, with real teacups, and then, you accept that happened.
When you work on a film set or a television series like The Shield, that's obviously a longer duration of time.
Right.
But I think that you worked on Avatar for 1.5 years. Isn't that true?
Right. Mm-hmm.
When you spend that much time in the company of these people as an actor, what's it like when you have to leave that family?
As an actor who is accustomed to leaving the theatrical shows all the time, where you're suddenly sort of really intimate within 2 weeks with a group of people, and you perform these plays, and maybe they're your husbands or your lovers, and all the things that you've done with them, and you sort of know a part of them intimately, and you know nothing about them afterwards. I was the person who would, at the end of the show, pack up my bags and go, I'm never going to see you again, but I had a fantastic time. Great. And I'd leave. And I had a feeling it's part of my upbringing, because I'm an immigrant family accustomed to just getting settled, and you got to pack up and leave. And I think I'm perfectly suited to being a cold-blooded, see you later, bye type of girl. Otherwise, I think this could be very difficult. This could be a really difficult thing, especially, like, The Shield was a marvelous family that I took part in. I mean, a really incredible family where you even know about their personal lives. It would spill over. And it's tough, but...
I had one more question for you before I let you go, and you've been so generous with your time. I really appreciate it. But you've done so many work in so many varied projects. Is there a type of role or a particular note that you long to play and explore that you haven't had an opportunity to yet?
Well, two things I've done to myself that I now regret because I'm so much older and wiser. And that was when I was quite young and in England. Most people would look at me and kind of go, oh, when you grow up, do you want to be a singer, dear? And I would get so furious because, of course, all you ever saw were black singers on television. So it was like, no, I don't want to be a bloody singer. I'm going to be something else. And I would get so pissed that I would literally stop singing. A joy that it's something that I really enjoyed doing. And at one point had a sweet and lovely voice, and then, became the usual smoker, hacker, kind of teenage wretch. And That was one thing. And in England, I also used to be incredibly funny. And I noticed that there were so many funny black people. I thought, well, I think I want to be the serious guy. I mean, you know, you've got to find your own door. That was a very, very smart idea. So I think I would like to lighten up the roles that I'm doing now, that I'm freer and smarter. And I know that time is obviously well past me by, but if Meryl Streep can do It's Complicated, I can somehow play a vamp in some movie with some sort of sense of humor and still have a good time.
I absolutely agree. I think you're capable of anything. So.
Thank you so much.
And happy holidays to you, and a happy birthday to you.
Oh, thank you.